On average, nearly 20 people per minute are physically abused by an intimate partner in the United States. That equates to more than 10 million women and men every year. 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men have experienced some form of physical violence by an intimate partner in their lifetime. In 2020, there were 106,000 domestic violence incidents reported in Florida, and 7,900 of them were right here in Orange County. In 2020, 198 Floridians lost their lives at the hands of their intimate partner, and 18 of those people were right here in Orange County. But we're here. Our shelter's been still operating at 40% capacity to keep survivors and our staff and anybody who comes in safe during the Delta variant. Our hotline is still operating, and we have at least 500 calls a month and just about 6,000 individuals that reach out to us every year on that hotline. But we also know that our emergency shelter and our hotline are only 2 of the many services that we're able to offer people who need help. So we have our court, we have our court accompaniment, we have our injunction for protection attorneys, and we also give legal advice. And with a lot of our other programs, we've seen an increase over the course of COVID of at least 15%. And these are people who are living with their abuser or living on their own who are reaching out for friends to help them and for Harbor House to help them. In addition to our courthouse program, we're offering survivor support groups. We've launched friends and family support groups. We have mental health counseling now, children and youth programs that we've expanded during COVID, and other specialty programs such as financial literacy. Like a lot of other businesses, COVID asked us to evaluate what we were doing well and what we could be doing differently. And our role was to keep people safe when they were living at home. So what we did is that we expanded by offering a text an advocate or a chat with an advocate. But also what we saw is that there are a lot of people who were struggling with what was going on at home as far as financially. And so we were able to start a pantry that was in our outreach offices, one in Apopka and one in downtown. And we've been able to give away over 900 food bags this past year, hundreds of car seats, and hundreds of strollers. And I don't even know how many diapers, but I know there's been a lot of diapers that we've been able to hand out as well. Harbor House continues to work really closely with law enforcement. That's a relationship we're super proud of, and it's been going on for years. We help out with the Sheriff's Office, we help out with Orlando Police Department, and also the Apopka Police Department. And we work hand in hand with different survivors that actually had law enforcement respond to their home. And that is a program that we're really looking forward to continuing, and also that is also going to be growing with domestic violence calls. We've also had more and more immigrants arriving to our area due to our close proximity to Colombia, Haiti, South America, and Mexico. And there's one thing that I want to say that's incredibly important, is that you can call law enforcement if you want help. You will not get deported because someone is abusing you. And if an abuser is telling you, that's a lie. We are here to help you regardless. And so also, law enforcement can help you because each officer is specially trained on how to handle domestic violence calls and incidents. You don't need to be afraid to call, and they will help you. Long after COVID is gone, and I know we want that sooner than later, we're still going to be dealing with domestic violence. So what's the antidote? It's being in a community like this where we have no tolerance and we're all banding together to take a stand. Our community is supportive. We are supported by our friends, our family, our neighbors, our coworkers, and we are doing that by knowing the signs and how to best support each other. We are all advocates, not just me and not just everybody standing up here. Harbor House can provide those tools and resources to educate you and your friends and family and employers through Harbor House. All you need to do is call us. Before I invite up Mayor Demings, I want to take you through an exercise. I personally know the survivor who's going to be sharing her story with you, but after seeing her today, she's inspired me. So I'm going to ask everybody to picture for yourself, and picture yourself for one moment, young, in love, and about to go on an amazing cross-country journey with this person that you love. This person is smart, this person is articulate, and non-threatening. This is a cross-country journey that will take you into 20 states. It includes backpacking, it includes hiking and camping. And as with every relationship, you have arguments, but your highs are so fun and so high, but the lows are really low, and they're dangerously low. To the point where you're left in Moab, Utah, at the edge of the desert, where there are few resources and extreme temperatures. Then you're left without water, hiking in the Badlands, where the temperatures were over 100 degrees. Then you're left again on a trail in the Redwood, California area, unknowing where you are. And then again, left in Berkeley, California, wandering the streets for hours before your partner finds you and begs you to get into the car. This might sound a lot familiar with what we've been reporting and what you might have reported when it comes to the Gabby Petito story. Her story has been really difficult for me because I was the girl who was left on the side of the road. I was the girl who was wandering in Berkeley and didn't know what to do. It was being left in dangerous places and being in the car with a man who threatened to drive off a mountain cliff, or worse, turn off the headlights at night and just drove recklessly. My abuser's jealousy and our bad fights were a pattern of emotional abuse known as coercive control, the same type of control that happens in intimate partner violence. The difference is that my story is that I came home and I got away from the abuser. I didn't know that it was a dangerous relationship. I thought that it was only a bad relationship. And I want to be able to share that so that more people know what does a dangerous relationship look like. Today, I'm part of the Orange County Domestic Violence Commission, and I'm so proud of the work that we're all doing together so that people can feel safe in our community. And under Orange County Mayor Demings, we have an amazing group of advocates, survivors, and community members who've worked hard to make the difference in the lives of domestic violence survivors. And to share more of this work, I'm going to invite Mayor Demings up for an update.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Michelle, for that introduction, and thank you for the heartfelt story that you told about a personal experience. To Sheriff Mina, it's good to be back here in the Sheriff's Office. I do recall doing many press briefings right from this podium. But it is my sincere pleasure to join Harbor House and my fellow elected officials today as we recognize Domestic Violence Awareness Month here within Orange County. As has been said, I convened the Domestic Violence Commission in 2019 to address the increase in domestic violence cases that we were seeing at that time. The increase in rates and incidents of domestic violence in Orange County was a problem that we could not ignore. The Honorable Judge Blackwell, Administrative Circuit Judge of the 9th Judicial Circuit of Florida, and Mr. Dick Batchelor, President of Dick Batchelor Management Group, co-chaired the work of the Commission. The Commission served in an advisory capacity to assess gaps in services, identify issues, and provide multi-sector recommendations to address the issue of domestic violence affecting our community. The Commission consisted of 22 members representing a variety of public sectors to include survivors. The Commission held 42 meetings and dedicated over 100 hours of voluntary service to analyze existing processes and resources in order to make recommendations that could better serve victims of domestic violence. The Commission proposed 16 recommendations which were presented and accepted by the Board of County Commission on August the 24th of this year. Today, I am enthusiastic to share an important community message that captures personal stories from individuals who have had life experiences with domestic violence. In a moment, you will listen to heartfelt testimonies of survivors and advocates that illustrate that domestic violence has many forms and can happen to anyone. I would like to publicly thank the Commission's Public Awareness and Community Education Committee, headed by Heather Wilkie, our very own Orange TV, and my staff for the production of this timely public service announcement. So if you can play the video at this time, it will appear on the monitors.
Did you know that spiritual abuse is used to control someone whose faith is very important to them? It took time, but I realized that God loves me more than he hated divorce. And did you know that there is life and love after abuse?
¿Sabías que el silencio le da poder al abusador? Yo sobreviví y ahora vivo feliz.
Did you know that one of the main reasons that Asian American Pacific Islander women avoid talking about their intimate partner and sexual violence experiences is due to the fear of bringing shame on their family? It is time to change.
Did you know that domestic abuse doesn't always start with physical violence? Abuse gradually escalates over time. Did you know that victims of nonviolent abuse have wounds? You just can't see them with your eyes, but they're still painful.
Did you know that domestic violence can occur in all communities with no consideration of race, gender, sexual orientation, or socioeconomic status? It happened to me.
Many times, religious and racial minority communities don't want to speak out because they don't want to further demonize already misunderstood communities. But in fact, domestic violence does not discriminate against race, religion, ethnicity, or culture.
Domestic violence affects so many individuals and families. It is vital for our community to work together to put a stop to the violence. There are ways you can help and get involved or assist a friend or family member. Visit the county's website at www.ocfl.net/DVC for information about the Domestic Violence Commission.
Together, we can end domestic violence.
Juntos podemos acabar con la violencia doméstica.
Together, we can end domestic violence.
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 Together, we can end domestic violence. All right. We all recognize the leadership of Ms. Sperzel and the valuable services provided by Harbor House to victims and survivors of domestic violence. It is my pleasure to present to Ms. Sperzel and the dedicated staff of Harbor House of Central Florida a proclamation, and I'm going to read the proclamation and then we'll ask Ms. Sperzel to come forward. The proclamation reads, whereas domestic violence transcends racial, ethnic, religious, and socioeconomic borders, and its perpetrators harm their victims, endanger children and animals, traumatize families, and threaten our communities. And whereas in 2020, the total amount of domestic violence offenses in Orange County ascended to 7,900, and sadly, 18 other domestic violence victims lost their lives as a result of criminal acts committed by their perpetrators. And whereas domestic violence follows a pattern of assault that devastates an individual's dignity, security, and humanity, and children who are abused too often become adults who inflict abuse on others, spurring a tragic cycle of abuse that must be stopped. And whereas breaking this vicious and criminal cycle requires not only the strength of survivors, but also the support and participation of community members. And whereas the Orange County community has responded with domestic violence prevention programs, crisis shelters like Harbor House, counseling and other support services, and whereas local hospitals, healthcare facilities, and animal shelters also provide crucial services for battered women seeking aid for injuries and associated medical problems, and whereas Domestic Violence Awareness Month is a time to reflect on the responsibilities of communities and residents to build healthy, thriving families free from the threat of violence. Now therefore, I, Jerry L. Demings, by virtue of the authority vested in me as Orange County Mayor, do hereby proclaim the month of October 2021 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month in Orange County, Florida, and encourages residents to take part in the numerous related activities held throughout the community and to further educate themselves on this critical issue, done in order this 4th day of October 2021. Again, please join me in thanking Ms. Sperzel and her entire staff for the work that they are doing. Ms. Sperzel, if you'll come forward, and I'll present the proclamation to you. And now it is my privilege to introduce the City of Orlando Mayor, Buddy Dyer.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Michelle, for sharing your story. I know even though you've been in this business, in this arena for a while, it's hard when you're sharing your own personal sentiments, so we appreciate that and having it published as an op-ed for everybody to read as well. The city's been a long-time supporter and partner with Harbor House, and we are really grateful for all of the work that team does. We believe to stem domestic violence, it takes our entire community coming together and taking a stance. No one should be able to use power and control over another individual to inflict pain, whether it's physical or, as Michelle mentioned, it can simply be mental. So we want to encourage everybody to understand and learn and know the signs that domestic violence is occurring and to encourage prevention and to assist victims and families. We continue to make our pledge that every victim of domestic violence or not knows that they're not going to be alone, that we have supportive communities. We're going to support survivors. There's places for them to go and they can return to full and healthy lives. OPD works closely with Harbor House to support those impacted by domestic violence, and Deputy Chief Velez is here. He's going to share more about OPD's perspective in just a moment. But through OPD's work and our funding support and collaboration with Orange County and the Sheriff's Office, we're committed to being there for survivors and preventing domestic violence. So in closing, I want to share that tonight, if you drive through downtown Orlando and visit beautiful downtown Lake Eola Park, the fountain will be purple to recognize Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and the lights will also showcase our advocacy for the safety, justice, and human dignity of domestic violence survivors. Thank you so very much, and now I'd like to call on Orange County Sheriff John Mina.
Thank you, Mayor Dyer. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm proud to stand with all these leaders in our continuing effort to eradicate domestic violence here in Orange County. As we all know too well, domestic violence is a crime that many times happens in the shadows and behind closed doors. And unfortunately, we have seen that during this pandemic, where many people are prone to stay at home, and we think many of our cases are going unreported. So during this Domestic Violence Awareness Month, we want to make it very clear to all of our community that we are here for them. And we must continue to raise awareness and make sure everyone in our community has those tools available to them to protect themselves, their children, and their pets. At the Orange County Sheriff's Office, we also work closely with Michelle and Harbor House, and have victim advocates housed here at the Sheriff's Office, so we work very closely with them. And I also would like to thank you for telling your personal story, Michelle, and big thanks to our survivor as well. You'll hear from in a minute. So far in 2021, Orange County deputies have responded to 4,300 domestic violence calls. Over 3,700 of those cases and arrests or charges were filed for domestic violence. And even though our number of reported domestic violence cases is up slightly this year compared to last year, like I said earlier, we know that's probably not the full picture of abuse in our community. In 2020, we did see an uptick in domestic violence homicide. It was just for unincorporated Orange County. Last year in 2020, there were 12 domestic homicides. This year, in 2021, there, in unincorporated Orange County, there have been 9 homicides related to domestic violence. And so we know that even one murder is one too many, and that's why all of us here on the stage continue to partner with Harbor House and other leaders in our community to continue to eradicate domestic violence. And together, you know, we want to provide our survivors in the community some great resources. You know, Harbor House has their kennel services, which are vital to survivors who many times don't want to leave their home and leave their pet behind with their abuser. And here at the Sheriff's Office, we are still benefiting from our LIFT transportation, our violence transportation branch, which allows free rides to survivors to go to the Sheriff's Office, to go to court, to get other services, all for free. So we really enjoy that grant, that partnership. Out front, you may see our purple patrol car, and it'll be throughout our community. Our deputies will take turns driving that car to get it to all corners of Orange County to continue to raise awareness for domestic violence, to let everyone know we are here to help them. And I would be remiss if I did not thank, we have a number of detectives from Orange County Sheriff's Office and victim advocates who work these cases every single day, and they are so committed to this cause and to eradicating domestic violence. And I also want to reiterate what Michelle said about those in our community, maybe immigrants. That's not our function at the Sheriff's Office. We don't care about your immigration status. All we care about is putting the abuser behind bars. So certainly we're going to work with you and get you through that trying time. So at this time, I'd like to invite Orlando Police Department Deputy Chief Jose Velez at the stage.
Thank you, Sheriff. And good afternoon. At the Orlando Police Department, we pride ourselves on our responsiveness to crime in all forms, especially responding to domestic violence calls. We work constantly to identify victims in high lethality situations so that we and our partners can intervene before tragedy strikes. On average, our officers respond to about 8 to 10 domestic violence calls per day. In 2020 alone, our officers responded to more than 2,000 calls related to domestic violence incidents. This does not take into account the many incidents never reported to the police. Every officer and employee in the Orlando Police Department knows that as an organization, our core values include the protection of domestic violence survivors and holding abusers responsible. The Orlando Police Department has a specially trained domestic violence response team of 60 members. This team has been described as a model program that has been recommended to be replicated by other departments. In addition, a group of detectives reviews each domestic violence related incident regardless of whether it resulted in an arrest. This allows our detectives to go over each case with a set of fresh eyes, ensuring that all proper steps were taken by those at the scene, or determining if any further action needs to be taken. None of this will be possible without the invaluable services of the victim services partners that we stand with today at this event. Today, our officers and detectives witness the benefits of having a Harbor House advocate readily available at our headquarters, whose expertise and resources have proved to be vital to building relationships with survivors and connecting them with resources. As we continue to end domestic violence through education and early intervention by holding abusers accountable and working with our partners to help survivors, we want to remind our residents that everyone knows someone. If you or someone you know is in a dangerous situation, please reach out. Call us by dialing 911, even if you don't think this is an emergency. Now, I'd like to welcome to the podium Orange County Clerk of Court, Ms. Tiffany Moore-Russell.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. The safety of anyone seeking protection from domestic violence will always be a top priority for me and my office. My office, like all clerks across the state of Florida, receive and process petitions for domestic violence injunctions, or what is better known as restraining orders. While the number of domestic violence cases may be increasing, filings for restraining orders with my office have declined during this pandemic. In 2019, we processed more than 5,000 petitions. In 2020, that number declined to just over 4,000. And so far this year, we are just about 3,000 petitions filed at this time. Restraining orders are essential services that are available year-round at no cost to individuals in need. Restraining orders help survivors in many ways. First, protective injunctions forces abusers by law to stop the abuse or threats. They also prevent abusers from coming near or contacting the survivor and making abusers leave the home or give temporary custody of children to the survivor. Further, the penalty for an abuser that violates a restraining order is arrest. In Florida, an injunction is processed in 2 steps. First, individuals must file a temporary injunction for immediate protection by filing the appropriate paperwork with my office. The court will then schedule a hearing for a final injunction to establish more permanent protections. In Orange County, a restraining order may be filed at the downtown courthouse in Suite 320, Monday through Friday, physically from 7:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. However, you can also file anytime, day or night, online on the Florida Court's e-filing portal. You can visit the portal and get more information on how to file by visiting my website at myorangeclerk.com. Keep in mind, there are 5 different types of restraining orders. Those 5 are domestic violence, sexual violence, dating violence, repeat violence, and stalking. Now, I'm not going to share with you details on the different ways of filing your injunction and knowing how to file it, but I will invite you to join me and Harbor House and the Orlando Police Department with our annual online domestic violence webinar, which will be held on October 26th, and it's a way for us to recognize clerks against domestic violence. And again, you can register and get information on my website at myorangeclerk.com. And again, that webinar will be October 26th. And please remember that my office and our deputy clerks stand ready to assist anyone in need of seeking a protection order. And now I will call up our state attorney, Monique Worrell.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. It is an honor to be here this afternoon with all of my fellow electeds as well as the community. The National Commission on COVID-19 and Criminal Justice shows that there's been an 8% increase in domestic or intimate partner violence during the pandemic. That spike has also been seen by our office and is likely, as has been said previously, an underestimate of what is truly happening in our community. In just 9 short months since I've taken office, my office has received thousands of intimate partner violence cases, hundreds more than this same period last year. The pandemic has led to further isolation and increased risk of harm for victims in all communities and in our circuit in particular. During the month of October, the Office of the State Attorney is sponsoring a social media campaign to increase awareness of domestic violence in our community. The goal is to provide education on healthy relationships, as well as unhealthy or abusive ones, as well as to connect the community members to resources that provide information for victims, families, and those who wish to become engaged in the work to end intimate partner and domestic violence in our community. All Floridians deserve to be safe in their homes and in their communities. Domestic Violence Awareness and Prevention Month is a time to remind all victims, survivors, and those impacted by domestic violence that the Office of the State Attorney stands with you